All right, we're live. Check the mic. Instant reaction. We're late because of me trying to figure things out, but another crazy week in the NFL, Sam. We just saw some sleepers of games, tiring games, bad games in the 4 o'clock hour. I'm rattled. I'm absolutely rattled. Let's talk ball. Chiefs stay undefeated. Discuss.
Yeah. In a game they really shouldn't have. We did our game predictions. I don't think either one of us saw the Chiefs losing. And yet it was our guy Brandon Perna jumped into the comments and was like, the Broncos are going to win the game. And that sounded crazy at the time. And yet they really should have won the game, only down to a blocked kick at the end, saved Kansas City. Incredible play, to be fair, on special teams. I think it was Leo Chenal, right? They were trying to give the credit to Mike Dana, but it looked very much like Leo Chenal, 54, as opposed to Mike Dana, 51. They just bulldoze straight through a guy and block the kick.
Incredible. I mean, they did it again, Sam. I mean, what I've seen from the Chiefs, over the last couple of years too, is Spags makes those big stops on third down. Their defense makes those big stops. Well, Bo Nix got past that. The first comeback attempt, Spags in the defense made the big stop. The second time around, though, Bo Nix steps up, hits the big third down conversion. They were already in field goal range. This really put them into field goal range and gave them full control to run the clock and kick the field goal. And I have to say, I've got no reservations about how the Broncos did it. They just had the kick blocks. They played it perfectly. It wasn't a ridiculously long kick. They ran the clock down to 0, and they had the game-winning kick attempt, and they missed it. They had it blocked, and the Chiefs kind of dodged a bullet. Mahomes missed Kelsey in the end zone on the previous drive. They had to settle for a field goal, only go up 1. And that was it, or only go up 2, whatever the 16-14 final for the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's such a shame for Denver because they really did play the end perfectly. Like they did the thing that other teams haven't been able to do, which is we are going to take all the time off the clock. We are not going to leave Mahomes 8, 10, 13 seconds to work with. We're taking it all off, and we're just going to win with the kick. And then the kick gets blocked. Like even when you take it out of Mahomes' hand, they still find a way.
I kind of want you to describe for me the Vikings-Jags game. How would you describe it? How would you describe that game? 12-7, Vikings moved to 7-2.
A complete and total beatdown of the Jags by the Vikings that Sam Darnold individually tried to change the result of by throwing red zone interceptions is essentially what happened there.
That sounds about right. 12-7, the Vikings moving the ball like crazy. Red zone interceptions like crazy. The Jags had 2 opportunities for a game-winning drive after giving up just the 4 field goals on the day, and back-to-back interceptions by Mac Jones, who was filling in for Trevor Lawrence. That's one of the other stories of the NFL coming out of this week. We knew a little bit on Thursday when we did our preview show, but Trevor Lawrence, they're saying a serious AC joint sprain injury. He might have season-ending surgery, especially now that the Jags are 2-8. Dak Prescott, it sounds like he's having season-ending surgery with hamstring. So we were speculating that we might not see both of those guys for the rest of the year, but that's kind of been reported as closer to fact now.
Yeah, surgery is not a typical outcome for a hamstring injury as well. So that's a bad injury that he had, which he kind of said, right? Like he felt something different than he's ever felt before in his hamstring. On the other hand, he didn't seem to react too bad to it. Like I've seen just relatively routine hamstring pulls. Guys look like they've been shot in the back of the leg. People didn't even really know that Dak had done his hamstring. They were looking at his hand or whatever. And then later on, it's like, oh, Dak might have a season-ending hamstring injury, by the way. Bad for Dallas. I mean, so I think one of the storylines really coming out of this week, the Jets and the Cowboys, 2 teams that were expected to be playoff contenders, potential division winners, real forces at the end of the season, they're both done now. I mean, mathematically, they're still alive, but this was a game where if the Jets were going to come on any kind of comeback run, win a bunch of games, get back in it, they needed to win this game. And for Dallas, the loss coupled with the fact that it's in the division added to the fact that Dak Prescott's basically shut down for the year now, and Cooper Rush and Trey Lance are going to take you the rest of the way. I mean, they're toast as well. So utter disastrous seasons for 2 teams that were expected to be for real.
Yeah, Dallas didn't even put up a fight against Philadelphia. If they didn't have those 2 turnovers, one in the red zone, one that put Dallas in the red zone, they could have lost by 50. And the Jets were similar. They lose 31-6. Full credit to Arizona, who I've been slow to credit this entire season. But that defense is absolutely cooking. Kyler had another one of those games, 22 for 24 pass, and just feeling it. He was unbelievable. That's probably the third game. Like, if you're stacking the best quarterback games of the season, Kyler might have 3 out of the top 5, right? He's got 3 out of the top 10, at least, I would say. And so he was outstanding again. And yeah, the Jets offense, it's funny because coming out of that win against the Texans, we asked the question, are the Jets back? Will this turn the season around? Fair question. I still looked at that offense and thought, man, there's just so many low percentage, tight window throws where it's like, if Garrett Wilson's not making a one-handed catch, what do they have? And he didn't make any one-handed catches today, so they had nothing. And so it was tough watch, I think, if you're a Jets fan today.
We also said, I think a couple of weeks ago rather than last week, and maybe it was coming out of that Texans game, but one of the concerns was with the injuries and the lack of depth now in defense, there was always a game coming around the corner where somebody could just put up points on the Jets defense, and suddenly the offense was going to have to either improve a lot or they were going to get a game like this. And unfortunately, that's what happened. The offense didn't improve at all. In fact, if anything, it took a step backwards off the back of that Texans game. And then the defense just couldn't stop Arizona at all. I mean, right from the get-go, James Conner, catch and run, basically a bust, straight down the sideline, almost scores. Kyler Murray was basically perfect. Trey McBride couldn't be stopped. I mean, the Jets defense really didn't land a punch in stopping a Cardinals offense that was amazing.
How about the game that one of the 2 games we called probably the game of the weekend, and it turned out to be quite a game. Steelers 28, Commanders 27. Steelers moved to 7-2. Commanders fall to 7-3. By the way, don't forget, as always, all games will be covered tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. sharp. But the Steelers, man, sole possession of first place in the AFC North, and they did it in impressive fashion with Russell Wilson to Mike Williams. Speaking of the Jets could use a nice explosive player like Mike Williams, who could catch 32-yard touchdowns. That turns out to be the game winner. Russ now 3-0 as starter for the Steelers.
Yeah, honestly, I came away impressed with both teams, actually. Obviously, Russell Wilson, the Steelers, they end up getting it. But I was impressed by Jaden Daniels. He was under a lot of pressure for a lot of that game. I mean, they had offensive line issues, guys being healthy just heading into the game and going up against a pass rush like Pittsburgh's, which, as we've said, may have the best front 4 in the NFL. It felt like it. I mean, Daniels was under pressure a lot in that game and quickly, and still played well, still delivered some ridiculous passes, still got out of trouble, made some plays. The Steelers' pass rush was formidable, and they were still able to make it work and almost won it.
Similar story to when the Commanders lost to the Ravens, right? I mean, that was kind of your takeaway there as well. It happened. There we go. I'll lose my video again. It's beautiful.
Yeah, a little bit.
We're back. You were impressed when they lost to the Ravens too. We were both impressed when they lost to the Ravens. And I think that's where the Commanders are right now. I think they're still kind of proving their worth that they're this competitive.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't had a game yet where they have just been completely exposed for being, a fraudulent team or looked completely out of their depth, way over their heads, or Jaden Daniels had a bad game. They have consistently just looked like, what on earth is happening now?
They're kicking me out, and I'm coming back in.
This is just high-end professionalism right here.
We were on such a good streak for a while. I don't know.
I feel like this is just a tech rebelling against the mustache that you're currently growing, which apparently we've decided not to address. We're just going to let that slide, huh?
I thought you were going to have a mustache when we logged in today. We talked about it on Thursday. I shaved my face and I left a mustache.
Yeah. I think so. Mine, I think, has to come down in stages. What I think I've set up the GoFundMe or the Movember thing. I think for every block of money, for every bar we clear, it'll I'll shave a different part of it off, right? So initially we have got to take this off, so it just ends up as giant mutton chop things. Then we go down to like the Hulk Hogan. Then we go down to, some sort of what the Deadwood, the
Yeah.
Western. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So we
okay.
just
So
go
you do it that way. I'll just rock the mustache for the month, and we'll see how we
hmm,
do. That
right.
sound good?
Yeah.
So you'll have to keep me updated on exactly what we're doing there, and what that looks like. What else? I lost my games. What else happened today, man? These things have
You
been
can.
cooking on Sunday night too. People are loving our instant reaction. They'll never come back. How about Bryce Young looking good once again?
Yeah. Okay.
That was
Did look
fun.
decent again. In Germany on the road. Panthers are now
Another,
undefeated in Germany.
and they are. Another one. The stat line, I did pull it up. 15 of 25 for 126 and a touchdown. 5 yards per attempt. Like, the stats are not great. But
Right.
one of his best throws again was dropped. And I know this wasn't the game clincher, but was it 3rd and 8? He hits that nice
Yeah.
deep out. I mean, there's just so many little plays in there where you're just like, man, that's a much better Bryce Young than anything we've seen at any other point.
Yeah, and part of this is like the expectations were lowered so much by his first year and a bit that simply not looking disastrous is like incredibly praiseworthy, right? Like I think we are probably being affected a little bit by how bad things had gotten, but we are seeing things on tape now over the last few weeks that simply were not there for the first certainly year plus, right? He is keeping within a pocket. He does look relatively calm and poised, and he is seeing the field again, right? He's moving in the pocket and delivering a pass that's not like right in front of him, that has to be an adjustment, has to require some anticipation, seeing it coming. He is playing more like the player we saw in college. Now, he's still not looking amazing, but like he's still dealing with a receiving core that isn't great. They are significant steps forward, albeit he still has a long way to go.
The only other game I wanted to touch on, game or two maybe, like NFC South, you have the Saints getting the win, first time since week 2. They moved to 3-7, beating the Falcons, the first place Falcons. Mentioned a lot the last couple of weeks, like the Falcons are in prime position to run away with this division. The Bucs end up losing to the Niners to offset that, but man, missed opportunity for the Falcons, and the Saints did get the Rizzy bump, the interim head coach bump to get the win here.
Yeah, the interim head coach bump, and apparently staved off a consecutive loss record that would have been like equaling something from like 1980 or something insane. If they had lost 8 straight, wouldn't have happened since the 80s. So a big win for them. Yeah, you're right. Missed opportunity for the Falcons. Really one of those games I think was, I mean, other than the interim head coach bump, was kind of difficult to see a reason that it would go this way. Sure, the offense could pull itself together because Derek Carr is capable of those types of games. But like Peyton Turner turning into a Superman on the defensive line is a fairly unpredictable random outcome of a given NFL weekend.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling catching three passes for 109 yards and 2 scores. I mean, I'm always of the mind that I want that skill set. You hear me all the time. I want the guy who can get open deep. I want that skill set on my team. And if he's open 10 times and your QB misses him a couple times and he drops a couple, it's okay. At some point, it's like all the last couple years of Valdez-Scantling not being on the same page with Patrick Mahomes, it was just like, boom, we got all the production in this one game to beat the Falcons.
His sort of career stat line or game splits must be ridiculous. He's going to have a bunch of games that look like this, and then a bunch of games where he just doesn't do anything at all. But yeah, like when you've already lost guys like Olave, Rashid Shaheed, et cetera, bring on somebody like Valdez-Scantling, because at least they're capable of those games, which is more than some of the other guys you're going to be able to pluck off the street are. The other storyline I think we need to cover is, again, the Chicago Bears offense looked absolutely wretched and was horrendous, can't score, it's getting worse. Remember, there was like a couple of weeks where when you sort of plotted out on a graph, everything looked like it was headed in the right direction. They've turned a corner. Caleb Williams looks better. They're slowly improving week on week, and then it just fell off a cliff again. It's gone back to where it was at the start of the year, which is terrible.
Yeah, I've seen this broken down a couple different times. It used to be this nice improvement graph for Caleb Williams and the Bears offense. Now when you break, it may have been Kevin Cole, it's like 3 games of really bad negative EPA, 3 games of positive, and now 3 games of negative. And that's all since the bye. I mean, we look at the byes as like this turning point in the season. Everybody's going to get better. it's overrated a little bit, but it's a little strange that coming out of the bye, the Bears look like they don't practice. Now, listen, they're missing at least 3 starters today. I think maybe 4. They were missing both starting tackles. Tevin Jenkins went down as well. There's some offensive line issues and some injuries the last couple weeks. But it was bad, man. It was like the worst plays from the first 3 weeks all bottled into the last 3 weeks. That's what the Bears' offenses looked like. But for statistically, Caleb Williams finishes with 120 passing yards, but then he gets sacked 9 times, and they lose 51 on those plays. It was poor.
And they don't look like, I mean, you're right. They did have some issues that they had to overcome. They don't, however, seem to have a particularly good game plan for overcoming them. Like, the passing map was just like nothing above 10 yards. Like, let's just throw short all day, and that will help us because the ball will come out quickly. But it wasn't really coming out quickly, and they weren't scheming anything open, like underneath. It was just, let's throw underneath and just basically raise a white flag. Like, we're not going to attack you deep. It's all going to be underneath. You can just attack. You can come on the front foot and really, we've seen this before with offenses. Like, if all you're going to do is pass underneath and no threat of anything over the top, defenses can just crowd the line of scrimmage. They can get up in the face of receivers, and it makes everything harder. And that's what the Patriots were able to do. The Bears had no answer for it. So this was the type of game that makes changes happen. I don't think Eberflus is going to get fired, but I would be surprised if Waldron is calling plays next week. I think that's the kind of change that gets made after this.
Yeah, I think everything feels off with that Bears offense. So we'll see. And it's another week. I think Drake May had 2 pretty bad decisions in there. One of them was picked. One of them was a dropped interception in the end zone. But it was another one of those games. If you take away a couple turnover-worthy plays, mostly positive, and it's something to build around, right, as far as Drake May goes.
Yeah, the pick was weird. I forget who it was commentating, but they were like, oh, he just didn't see TJ Edwards. Like, TJ Edwards is right in front of him the whole way. There's no way he didn't see him. I think he just tried to layer it over the top of him and just didn't get anywhere near doing it. Like, it wasn't, I don't think it was even possible to layer that ball over the top of him anyway. But I think it was a mistake of like optimism as opposed to, I didn't see the large linebacker right between me and the receiver I'm trying to hit. Like, he was looking at it the whole way. There was no point where he wasn't between him and the guy he was trying to throw to. I think he just tried. I think he thought he could fizz it in over the top and get it by him, and it just was never on.
The chat is attacking me and my mustache. I refuse to be swayed here. Just give it a little. We're gonna work it. Give it a couple weeks. All right.
It's always a work in progress.
It is, right? We're just, every college football coach right now, when they lose 2 games, it's like all of our goals are still ahead of us, right? That's how I feel about the mustache, right? The season's not over. It's November 10th. We got weeks here to build this thing up. So
you're in the bridge quarterback stage of the rebuilding process.
I call it the Teddy Bridgewater. It'll get us there,
right?
It'll get us.
Nobody likes that period.
One last story to touch on here. I know we're all over the place, and you hate that. Joe Flacco. Someone in the chat asked though, the Joe Flacco experiment. Eric asked in the chat. Please talk about Joe Flacco. It wasn't good again. Starts with a pick 6 for Buffalo. They never really had a shot, the Colts. And look, I believe it was a true statement that earlier in the year, the offense did look better with Joe Flacco. That has not been true over these last couple of weeks. It's been just as bad, if not worse, than it was with Richardson.
It has. It is also worth, we said last week, look, that was against a Flores defense, right, which has caused all kinds of problems. And this was against the Bills defense, which is a pretty good unit. Like, these have been tough assignments. Like, again, my question to anybody saying, well, this is clearly a mistake, you should have kept Richardson in there anyway. What would Richardson have looked like against those 2 defenses? I doubt it would have been better. There might have been a couple of big plays in there, but I don't know if it would have been better overall. They were able to move the ball at times. They were able to run the ball in particular. Jonathan Taylor had some huge plays. The problem is that, this is the weird thing about some of these kind of veteran quarterbacks like Jameis, like Flacco, like some of these guys, is that very rarely are they actually game managing type of quarterbacks. Like, almost all of them have always been of the like YOLO, it'll work out, take a shot type, right? Which means they're going to make a bunch of mistakes. Like Flacco, if he didn't make mistakes, would have been great today. But Flacco's always going to make some bad mistakes. And so that puts you in a hole. And they're not going to dig out of that.
That's Flacco and Jameis make it so difficult for people who like to analyze the game the way we do, with some without overreacting to just the stat line and everything. That's Flacco kept making us look bad last year because we're like, he threw 4 balls to the defense and only 1 was caught. Right. And then he threw 4. It's like, oh, Flacco, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, great game. It's like, no. Like the last 2 weeks though, Flacco's bad passes have been caught by the defense.
I don't know that they'll ever get there because their kind of status is too high to become old veteran backup quarterback, right? But like an Aaron Rodgers or Justin Herbert, if they reach, 38, 40-year-old Justin Herbert with his propensity for not turning the ball over, like he would be a really interesting guy to come off the bench to spark something, for a young athletic quarterback who's struggling, because he's a guy that doesn't put the ball in harm's way at all, like all-time levels of safe with the football. That would be a really interesting QB to throw into situations like that. Rodgers as well, but obviously we're never going to see like that version of him given where he is at this point. But like Jameis has always been like high-end risk. Flacco has always been pretty prone to high-end risk. Like those guys, if they throw the ball to the defense, they're just in too much of a hole to combat, to go one-on-one with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and if in Jameis's case, the Ravens didn't catch the passes thrown to them, and the Chargers did, and Jameis is 1-1 at starter with the Browns. So something to keep an eye on. Shane Steichen coming out of the game. People asked, hey, who's the quarterback? He said, until I say otherwise, Joe Flacco is the quarterback. I saw that quote flying around, and of course, people are like, oh, this guy's an idiot. Oh, this guy's stubborn. It's like, of course, like after a game, what are you going to say? Oh, I think we're going back to Richardson. Game just ended. Like, he might announce on Tuesday it's Anthony Richardson, but like give the dude some time.
But I also think going back to Richardson doesn't make you look good either. Like the only real justification for sitting down Richardson when they did is he's not like he's getting worse now. We actually need to think about his development in a different way. If your plan was really just Flacco for the next 2 weeks gives us the best chance of winning those games, and then after that, maybe Richardson gives us the best. That's like directionless and clueless, and genuinely sounds like that's an incompetent way of steering a ship.
I disagree. They have more information now. The information at the time was Joe Flacco's playing better. We're going to try to spark the team with him. The information now is Joe Flacco's playing horribly, and he's pushing 40, and let's go back to Richardson. I don't care how it makes you look at the end of the day. And then you know how much like other stuff around the league influences this. The fact that Bryce Young comes out looking different just 5 or 6 weeks after he looked horrendous might make the Colts more inclined within the next week or two to go back to Anthony Richardson, whether that's the right move or not.
Yeah, but like you're 4-6. You're going back to Richardson to lead the playoff charge? Like,
yeah, I would.
At this point, I think the most important thing the Colts can get out of this year is rescuing Anthony Richardson as a quarterback. And I don't think that's served by going, oh, well, Flacco didn't look good. Let's put him back out there.
Again, the only other piece of information with the AR thing, though, was that it was the opt-out thing that probably lost the locker room. And if he spent 2 or 3 weeks working his way back, it's a lot easier to go back to him, right?
Sit down on the bench and think about what you've done.
Did you rehab your locker room image over the last 2 or 3 weeks here, Anthony Richardson? If so, you're obviously more talented than Joe Flacco. You're the starter. So something to keep an eye on. Do not play Sam Ehlinger for all of us, for all of our sake. I believe that was his name came up today. New England had 9 sacks of Caleb Williams today. The last time they did that was a franchise record, and they did it to Sam Ehlinger 2 years ago.
Here, we got emailed this question as well, and I don't know if this is the same person, but I think we should throw that out there. Like the theory being that only one person at the NFL at any given time can occupy all of the ginger talent. Given all of the gingers played terribly today, who is currently occupying it? Where is it?
Carson Wentz is storing it on the bench in Kansas City. He was out on the field 2 weeks ago in a 3-point stance in a 1932 formation, and he he'd catch the snap and handed it off. And I think he just storing it all right now. Certainly not Cooper Rush.
Right. Wait, Denver should really.
Is there a video of Skip throwing his Cooper Rush jersey away tonight? What's going on? You keeping an eye on Skip?
So Denver should really count themselves lucky that Mahomes' ankle was good to go. Otherwise, they'd have been in real trouble.
Oh, yeah. That Kansas, they scored 16 points today, man. Carson Wentz would have dropped 30 on Denver easily. We jumping off, and maybe Andy's storing it on the bench too. lost it in the car accident. Anyway, we've done enough today. Look at my camera making it through the show. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
I don't think that qualifies as making it through the show. My camera, I think, made it through the show.
My camera went full Bryce Young. We got benched early, but we're finishing strong.
Yeah. Like, my camera worked at the start, it worked in the middle, and then it worked at the end. That's making it through the show. Yours crapped itself a couple of times, and now it's just worked for a couple of minutes towards the end of the show.
The people tune in to watch me battle with the camera. Anyway, we're going to go full game by game tomorrow morning. As always, 7 a.m. right here on the YouTube channel. And wherever you listen to your podcast, be sure to download, subscribe.